Alright, ladies, so let me ask you something. Does it feel like no matter how much you learn about dating men, nothing actually changes in your love life? You're watching all these videos, how to attract him, feminine energy, what to say, what not to say, and instead of things getting easier, you just feel more confused and exhausted. Like you're doing everything right, but somehow still end up in the same situation. But what's actually happening is that most of you are not struggling because dating is broken. You're struggling because the way that you're looking at it is making everything more difficult than it needs to be. My name is Ismael Gomez, and I help women stop wasting time with the wrong men and finally build a relationship that actually works. I have spent over 20 years dating myself before finding my now fiance and 5,000 hours coaching women like you through these exact situations. So in this video, I'm going to compress all of that in less than 10 minutes and give you a perspective that I think that most of you are missing. Okay, so stop multitasking and let's begin. You are overcomplicating dating. Most women I talk to are not confused because they haven't learned enough. You're confused because you learn too much from too many people. You go online and one person tells you to detach. Another one tells you that you're not feminine enough, text them first, do not text them. And now you're sitting there more overwhelmed than when you started. So let me simplify this for you because everything in dating comes down to three things, okay? This is the framework that I teach in my coaching and I'm going to give it to you right now. Okay, so number one is filtering, meaning where do you find men who are actually ready for commitment? How do you evaluate them early? And how do you stop wasting years on the wrong ones? Number two is attraction. And I don't mean your looks. I mean what actually makes a man choose you and invest in you. Because there's a difference between a man who enjoys your company and a man who can't imagine his life without you. And number three is detachment. How to regulate emotionally when there's conflict, when he pulls away, when things feel uncertain, without abandoning yourself or being taken for granted. And that's it, right? Every single situation that you've been through with a man is always going to fall under one of those three. And by the way, I'm going to be teaching a live masterclass soon where I'm going to break down this entire framework in detail, how to actually apply it, not just understand it. So when I post the link next Sunday, make sure that you grab your spot. Stop diagnosing him. How many of you have spent months trying to figure out why a man won't choose you fully? You go online and you start reading about attachment styles and you start diagnosing him. Oh, I think he's an avoidant, or he's a narcissist, or he's emotionally unavailable, and now you created a whole psychological profile on this man, but you're still in the same situation. And here's what I want you to understand. If a man won't commit to you, in most cases that I see, it's not because of his attachment style. It's because he doesn't perceive enough value in the commitment right now. And again, the analogy that I always give you, ladies, that if you handed that man $1 million a month to be committed to you, do you think he's going to be like, oh no, I need space, I'm not ready for this kind of commitment? No, most guys are going to take it immediately. So it's not that he can't commit, it's that he hasn't been shown through the dynamic between you two that what you bring to the table, okay, what you bring to his life is something that he can't find anywhere else. And actually, research in behavioral psychology shows that people don't commit based on what's available to them. They commit based on what they believe they can't replace, okay? And that is called perceived value. And the way that you show up and what you tolerate is going to directly shape how he perceives that value. A random strategy creates random results. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You keep meeting the same kind of men, the emotionally unavailable ones, the inconsistent ones, and what do? You try again, right? Maybe a dating app, maybe going out with someone new, and for a moment it feels hopeful. But then the same thing happens. His effort drops, he only wants sex, he was never serious, and after enough of these experiences, you stop asking what is wrong with him, and you start asking what is wrong with me. But here's what I want you to consider. There's probably nothing wrong with you. Yeah, there's things that you need to work on, but the main issue is probably your dating strategy, or the fact that you don't even have one. Because again, I see this all the time in my coaching. A woman comes to me frustrated, exhausted, ready to give up, and when I look at her approach, it's always the same thing. She's talking to whichever man shows interest first and hoping that one of them eventually turns into something real. And that is not a strategy that is trying to win the lottery. And I don't know about you, but I like to learn about investing. Okay, where do I put my money? How do I get a return? And not spend it on lottery tickets hoping to get lucky. the voice in your head that is not yours. Now, this one I want to deliver with love because I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I need to say it. How many of you are taking dating advice from your single friends? And I'm not talking about a woman who's single by choice and thriving. I'm talking about the woman, okay, that friend who's been in the same cycle as you, struggling with the same kind of men, and yet she's the first person that you go to, that you call when something goes wrong. And these friends mean well, okay? They love you, okay? But if you wanted to build a successful business, would you take advice from someone who's never built one? So then the obvious question is, why are you taking advice from someone who's trying to figure out their love life, and sometimes it's even a mess, and they're trying to guide yours? Now, those friends might be great at telling you what to avoid, okay? They've seen all the red flags, but knowing what doesn't work is not the same as knowing what does. And you know what changed my perspective on this completely is that I stopped listening to most people around me, and I started studying couples who had been happily married, 30, 40, or even 50 years, and I will sit with them, interview them for my book, observe how they communicate, how they still choose each other after decades, and what I learned from those conversations was completely different than anything that I read or seen online. So be honest with yourself. Who are you listening to? Are they where you want to be? Because the voices that you let in shape the beliefs that you carry into every date and every relationship. And if those voices are coming from a place of pain, which is usually the case, that is the energy that you're going to bring with you every single time. You don't have a man problem, you have a pattern problem. I remember a few years ago when I was single and dating here in Miami, and it was rough, ladies, okay? It was pretty rough. I mean, women ghosting me, being inconsistent, using me for sex, because this is not something that only men do, okay? I mean, even some of them were hooking up with different guys at the same time. So then, obviously, like many of you do, what was my reaction? Oh, these women, man, here in Miami, they're so materialistic, they only want you for what you provide. But every now and then, I would find one girl who was kind, and she seemed to have potential, and things would start pretty well between us, but after a couple of dates, she would always lose interest. And I kept getting frustrated until one day, I sat down and I asked myself, is this really a woman problem? Or is it an Ismael problem? And I kept asking myself all these questions. Maybe it's that I'm attracting the wrong kind of women. Maybe it's that I'm hanging out in the wrong places. Maybe I'm presenting myself the wrong way on dating apps. Or maybe I need to learn to control my sexual energy. And that's when I learned the lesson that I always preach here on my channel, that is, for your relationships to change, you need to change. So I stopped everything. I went completely celibate. I worked on myself. And then when I jumped back into dating, it literally took me 14 days to meet my now fiance. And by the way, the wedding is happening this year, okay? There's going to be a lot of surprises, so stay tuned. Now, I'm telling you all of this because I noticed so many of you in the comments, in the DMs in my Instagram, always blaming men, always blaming the apps, always blaming timing, the same way that I was doing in the past, instead of taking a real look at your own patterns and how you're showing up. All right, ladies, so those are the 5 points that I wanted to discuss. And for today's comments, we have Devotional Stories who wrote, why do we need to do all of these only to get a man in life? Let them be with themselves. Who cares? Well, my opinion on this is that if you truly didn't care, you wouldn't be here watching my channel, okay? I bet that you're not watching videos on how to become an engineer, right? Because you never clicked on any of those, which probably means that you still want partnership with a man, okay? Maybe you're living on denial. Just think about it, okay? Because I can tell you personally, I study women every single week, okay? To be a better partner, a better brother, a better son, and a better coach. And yes, wanting to attract and create a healthy relationship with someone is work. But can it be fun? Okay, can you have fun when you're doing it? Can you enjoy it when you learn these skills? In my opinion, you can. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you for subscribing to my channel, and remember that for your relationships to change, you need to change, okay? Have a beautiful day.